Network Administrator Cleary, can you let me know when we're good to go?
We're good to go for streaming, but I'll wait to hear from somebody in the room for when TVC-TV is ready to go with the TV production.
Council President Hu, can you wave your arm and have that little light turn on?
Yep, it's on. It's on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will call this Tigard City Council meeting to order. Deputy City Recorder Raimundo, please call roll.
Councillor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Wolf.
Here.
Council President Hu.
Here.
Mayor Lube.
Here.
Youth Councillor Nog. And Councillor Shaw. Thank you.
Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and mute your mics if needed. Thank you. Thank you. I believe we have one non-agenda item as far as the Charter Committee application. Council or staff, is there any additional non-agenda items to add? Council President Hu?
Thank you, Mayor Loop. I just want to wish our community member who celebrate the Lunar New Year this week a happy New Year, and thank you so much.
Thank you. That's an excellent addition.
And nothing additional from us, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, public comment. If you'd like to call in, our phone number is 503-966-4101, and those wishing to comment should call now to get into the queue. Anyone present in the room wanting to comment, please sign up on the public comment form at the front of the room. And we will go to Assistant City Manager Nyland for a follow-up for previous public comment.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Lube. We did receive one comment at last week's council meeting. A community member wrote requesting that council allow Ridwell to provide a full range of recycling services to Tigard residents. We did provide a response. So for context, at the council meeting on September 27th, 2022, the City Council asked staff to work with Ridwell and the city's franchise haulers on how to best provide recycling services in Tigard. Those discussions are ongoing, and we hope to provide an updated response in the coming weeks. This is now a perfect time for our fun fact. So I had two options, Lunar New Year or recycling. So I will do recycling. So in 2022, we received almost 300 comments about recycling. These were received through email, comments at council meetings, fireside chats, phone calls, and good old-fashioned letters sent through the mail. And at that September 27th council meeting, when we held a public hearing to discuss implementing a Recycling Plus program and the associated fees, there were over 110 comments received. So this shows us that Tigard cares and the community wants to be part of the solution to reduce waste, recycle more, and protect the environment. That is my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, today so far we received one written public comment by noon today. It was a comment from Walter Brune, who is opposed to projects related to our climate resiliency goals. Deputy City Recorder Raimundo, were there any additional written comments received?
There were none.
Okay, thank you. Deputy City Recorder Raimundo, did anyone sign up to speak in person today?
No.
Okay, thank you. Network Administrator Cleary, are there any callers in the queue or anyone needing to comment by video today?
We have no video or audio testimony.
All right, thank you so much. We will move on to the capital improvement plan update, and City Engineer Wisniewski, We'll give the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Joe Wisniewski, City Engineer, and here tonight to present the quarterly capital improvement project update. Next slide, please. So I first want to start by giving a very brief introduction to what the CIP is. So it's our capital improvement plan. And on this slide, you'll see a couple images from the CIP in brief that was created last year as part of our budget process. The CIP in brief is as the title says, a very brief document that is intended to be an introduction to the full CIP. It's a very user-friendly guide to explain the various systems that we have and the amount of money that we spend each year on our capital improvements and our infrastructure in the city. So here you'll see we have 6 systems that we include in the capital improvement plan. Those are water, sewer, stormwater, streets, parks, and also city facilities. Within each of these systems, the full budget document will have individual projects detailed by the year that they're planned over the next 6 years, and also the funding sources, and we document any outside funding as well, such as grants or opportunities to partner with other agencies. This is a lead-in to next week's budget committee meeting, where you'll hear a little bit more about kicking off this coming cycle for the budget and the capital improvement plan development. But I just wanted to give a quick introduction to the CIP and draw your attention to the CIP in brief, which in your packet, there is a link to that document. And as you have a chance to review that, feel free to reach out anytime with questions you have about the CIP and the various systems that we have. And finally, the last comment on that, I'd like to mention that all of the projects that are included in the CIP go through multiple steps of prioritization and selection to get into the CIP itself. And the main component of that is system planning. So each one of the capital systems that we have a standalone system plan, and on average we update them about a 5-year cycle. So as I go through my update tonight, you'll hear about a few of them that are coming up, and that is what really guides project selection and how a project gets on the list. Next slide. So there again, here's the 6 systems that we'll talk about tonight, and you'll see a color coding system used. It's red, yellow, and green, kind of like a traffic signal. These color codings are really based on the level of risk that we currently have in the project, and we assign them to the scope, the budget, and the schedule. And as we go through each project, I'll talk about them in a little bit more detail. Next slide. So our first system to talk about is the parks system. The projects to highlight here, we have 3 projects at Dirksen Nature Park. We combined the wetland boardwalk and walkway project with off-street parking lot and the community trail this year into essentially one project, all under contract with the same contractor right now. You will see the schedule on these projects are trending yellow and red depending on the specific location. Primarily that is due to us managing the contractor right now, and we've had a few issues lately of them meeting the schedule. But scope and budget are relatively on track. You'll see a little bit of yellow there on the off-street parking lot. Most of that was associated with some of the earlier delays with combining these projects together, and there was some budget impacts because of that. The last project on this slide is Parks Major Maintenance, And that is a annual program that is, because of the capital improvement plan criteria, it meets the budget thresholds to be included. And it's more or less an annual opportunistic fund or program that helps with larger scale maintenance at all of our various parks. So it could be a small playground replacement or improvement, restroom facilities, and it's just an annual program that engineering coordinates with our public works operation teams in parks. And that's a reminder to myself to explain to you the thresholds for a CIP project. It's any project that is a capital investment of $50,000 or more, and typically will extend the life of an asset by 5 years or more. And then also any system planning, feasibility studies, kind of planning efforts that lead up to the actual project development itself would be included as well. But so we're talking about significant projects that are $50,000 or more. Next slide, thank you. Next project is the Cook Park Inclusive Play. We are currently in the land use and permitting phase of this project. Some of you may, if you've been tracking this project, may have seen that we went through an extensive public engagement process to select our vendor for the actual playground equipment. And we completed that process, and now we're taking their design through the land use and permitting phases. We expect to have that completed by the end of this summer. Currently, we're showing it as green, but we're starting to see a trend of delays in equipment and material supplies. So right now, the goal is still this summer, and we will keep the council updated on that status. Also, along the lines of Cook Park, we are currently working on the 60% design drawings for the replacement of the accessible boat ramp. That is currently shown as yellow, both for budget and schedule. We've received some preliminary comments back from the Marine Board that our original design had to be revised to meet their criteria. We went into it with the understanding that our design was one of their projects or design criteria that they've approved before. And as they went through their planning, development, and design review, we had a significant change to the dock design. So we're getting it back on track, and just wanted to be open to show you that that one is impacted a little bit. The Faneuil Creek Trail RFFA grant project. This is a project that's been going on for a very long time. We may be approaching 10 years right now. Unfortunately, it's red on the screen and will be till we get this one completed. We have a path forward. The project is being led by ODOT. So we're coordinating closely with them. And the key here is this project has to be bid by September of this year, and we are on track for that to meet the funding requirements. So we have very strict path forward, and the consultant team in ODOT are tracking along closely to that to meet the deadline. So very confident in that schedule. We're about 95% design right now, and we are in the easement acquisition phase. So we should be good to go on this one, but there's a long story on this one that's been brought to council many times. And with all the new councilors here, we have some information that's been prepared previously, and I'll make sure that that's sent out to everyone to share the history with this one, just so you all know how we got to where we are today. The next two projects are Bagan Park. This project has not started yet. There is Metro bond funding on this project, and it's closely tied to the Steve Street project on schedule, and that's mostly due to the requirements of the Metro funding and the amount of public engagement we have to go through and the outreach. So what we did was we went through that process on Steve Street Park, and we're working on getting Metro sign off and approval on that approach, and then we're going to copy and paste that into the Bagan Street plan to hopefully streamline the approval process with Metro on Bagan Park. Currently, Steve Street Park is scheduled for construction late this summer and into fall of 2023, and that's pending the approvals of Metro on our public outreach and engagement efforts.
City Engineer Wisniewski, can we pause here to see if there's any questions on our park projects? Yes, Councilor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor Lube. I was delayed on my hand there. So thank you so much for the update so far. My only question is, I appreciate the efficiency of community engagement and then leveraging that for the second park. Would there be any concern, and again, I continue to learn about all our communities, that would we be missing anything with Bagan Park based on just kind of leveraging what we know from Steve Street Park, if that makes sense?
Yes, and let me clarify. Thank you for the question. When I say basically copy that into Bagan Park, we're copying the method or process that we use for the public outreach. We're still going through the same outreach, same engagement. Definitely want to seek the input from the neighborhood and the people that plan to live around and use that facility. So yes, well, thank you for the question.
And if I could just add, individuals have been very excited about Bagan Park for a long time, so I think they're really excited to engage with us on what exactly they want to see in their park. Council President Hu?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Fennel Creek Trail project is the only one that was double red. So is there anything the council can do to help move this along, or you think everything's under control at this point?
Yeah, thank you. Everything is in control right now. It's primarily red because of the significant amount of budget overrun that's occurred because of the history of scope creep and different regulations that came onto the project afterwards by going through the ODOT process that wasn't assumed in the early phases of this project delivery. At this point, I appreciate the question and offer to help. But I believe we have a really good path forward with ODOT to get this project out for bid later this fall.
Thank you. Okay, let's dig into street projects.
Okay, so the first project is the pavement management program. This is an annual program that does a number of things with our streets. The heavy projects are slurry seal, and pavement restoration. So you might see us doing some grind and inlay or overlays of pavement. The key thing to note here is budget and schedule went well this year. The work is completed for the year, and we completed 12.8 miles of slurry. What we do on this program is we have a 5-year plan, and going forward, we are going to alternate every other year where we do slurry seal one year and we do our crack seal on the opposite years, so that we have a little bit larger bid package for scale of economy, and also that we're not every year taking on the large construction effort of slurry. We'll have it every other year. So you'll see a little bit of change in our reports going forward. We won't have slurry every year, but we're still going to complete the same amount in a 5-year plan as we have in the past. The next program is the PED and Cyclist Connections program. This is similar to some of our other system ongoing programs where it's kind of opportunistic or closely tied to our operation teams on different needs. But we also use this program to match a lot of our Safe Routes to School grant programs, install the rapid flashing beacons at significant pedestrian crossings, and we also complete annual bike and pedestrian counts at key locations throughout the city to have a good idea of where our users are and the amount of people using our trails and key nodes in the city. Couple projects that have been completed now is the Upper Boones Ferry Durham Adaptive Signals. This is essentially all of Durham is now a connected signal corridor. And the key component of that project was the hawk signal at Tigard High School. So there's an improved, enhanced crossing for pedestrians at the school now. And then Roy Rogers Road, this one is on the list. It's been completed for over a year now, but we have in our capital improvement plan a payback period of paying back the county for the city's share of that project. So we're under budget. It's been ahead of schedule. And now for the next, I believe we have 8 more years left of payment of about $900,000 a year for that project. So there's not much more on that one. The 121st Avenue project, this is a county-led MISTIP project. It's active construction right now, going well, and we expect it to be completed around May, this coming May. So, and then the next 2 projects are bridge replacement projects. You'll see a little bit of yellow on this one. The interesting or reason for its yellow is the uncertainty of the schedules right now. And when I say uncertainty, we have 3 key projects really going on in that same area. It's the Tigard Street Bridge replacement over Fannel Creek, North Dakota over Fannel Creek, and then ODOT is currently working on 217 construction, which will be replacing the Hall Boulevard over 217 structure. And we've made a commitment that we won't close all of these structures at the same time. Obviously, that would be very large impact to the traveling public. So there's a lot of things up in the air right now on schedule for which project is going to be replaced first. But the design side of it is progressing well. And the key part of that is the Tigard Street Bridge is locally funded, all of City of Tigard funds. So the goal is to have that one designed and ready to go so that depending on the federal aid projects, Tigard Street, or I'm sorry, North Dakota Street and the ODOT projects, if they are later going out, then we can slip in Tigard Street earlier and keep the 3 projects all in the same reasonable time frame over the next few years. But there's still some uncertainty, but we're managing that schedule closely with our partners. And then Murdoch Street sidewalk and stormwater improvements. We're currently at 60% design. This one, at 60%, we have identified that we are over budget, but we recently applied for a Safe Routes to School grant project for the Templeton Tuwaldi area, and we were able to increase that grant ask to cover a good portion of the overrun on Murdoch Street. So as soon as that IGA gets processed and the award is formally through, we'll be back into good standing on budget for Murdoch Street. The next one is Bonita and Sequoia intersection traffic signal. This is another MISTIP project that is being led by the county. The project is in its early phases right now, just kicking off, and I would say it's going quite well. Our project manager at the county has partnered well with the city and ODOT to help us coordinate some of the easement needs in that area. And also there's some remnant parcels that ODOT owns that the county was able to help us identify, and hopefully we will have a smooth process of potentially obtaining some of those ODOT parcels to make our easement process much easier on this project rather than working with some private property owners. The Highway 99W street lighting project, on the slide when this was drafted, we said that we were preparing bid documents. Last week we actually opened bid documents. So we have a contractor that bids came in well, and council will be hearing that in an upcoming, probably about 2 to 3 weeks out yet before that'll be brought to council for award. But that project will be going to construction for this summer. And that's in general, after this project is completed and then the ODOT 99W paving work, all the intersections along 99W will essentially have enhanced lighting at the intersections throughout the city of Tigard. So, ADA right-of-way program. This is similar to our street maintenance program, but it's only focused on sidewalk ramps and bringing them up to ADA standards. So that project this year was on budget. However, this one is shown as red on schedule. We had some difficulties with the contractor complying with some contract terms and went over schedule. We resolved that now, but it was significantly delayed. But that project is completed from the eyes of the contract. We have a little bit of restoration work that the city is going to complete yet this year. Transportation system major maintenance, mostly focused on traffic signal work, and we coordinate all that through Washington County through an IGA. We rely on their signal shop and their expertise to help us maintain our traffic signal system. And then the fiber communication network program, this is truly an opportunistic program where other CIP work or private development, if they're working in an area that we've identified as a future fiber network, we use these funds to compensate them for installing either fiber optic cables or the conduits for future fiber. And we are also, under that program this year, completing a mini system plan to help us update what that fiber network looks like or other communication technologies that we should be considering rather than fiber. So there will be a little bit more of a report coming out of that program later this year. And then finally on this slide is the Main Street Phase 2 project. Best I can say right now is we are actively working on maintaining or managing that contract. The contractor has been difficult to work with right now. And at the end of this week, we have another check-in with them on status, and I'll keep the council updated, but this has been a difficult contract to work through. And I believe that's the end of streets. I don't know, Mayor Lube, if we want to pause for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's pause for questions if anybody has any questions. I know, thank you for the update on Main Street Phase 2. I get a lot of questions about just the status of it and comments about how horrible it is to drive and just be downtown with the roads. So hopefully we can help get those contractors back on track. Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to water projects. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Singh?
Yeah, this might be a good segue into the next part too. You know, I've noticed some flooding happening around, I think it's Durham and 99 West, and as well as the Tigard Town Square. And I was wondering if that was being addressed in any of these projects, if you know of that.
Yeah, the Durham at 99W, that drainage, we actually have design completed right now, and we're running that through our stormwater major maintenance program, which is a capital improvement project, but it's a small project that would be in one of these programs that we talk about tonight. The current status of that is we sent it over to ODOT for permitting review. So it's our system, but we're working in ODOT's right away. And we just found out end of last week that we need to enter into an IGA with ODOT for that effort. So we still hope to get this work completed during dry weather this summer, but we most likely are coming back to council in the next month or two, depends how long it takes to draft an IGA, to seek approval for that coordination with ODOT. But good news is we have the funds for the project and the design is nearly complete at this point. So we're navigating that right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so for water projects, the big project that we have in the water CIP is the Reservoir 18 and Pump Station project. This is a new water reservoir being built on Bull Mountain near Sunrise Park area. We currently are at 30% design, and actually just met with the team today to start talking about review of the GMP, so it's guaranteed maximum price. And we're in negotiations with the contractor right now for that, and that will be coming back to council. Depends how negotiations go, but we're probably looking about a month out, maybe a little bit more, to bring that GMP amendment to the contract to council. And our team will definitely at that time share the history on the progressive design build. It's an alternative delivery method for that type of construction. And that's tracking well right now for schedule and budget. Milton Court water line is completed. That was so water line work at the end of Milton Court and under the railroad tracks. So that work's been completed. Pipeline renewal and replacement program. This is a new program based on our last water system plan adoption. And right now we have a goal to replace a mile of water main next year in the city. And then each year over the next 3 years that increases. Right now we're on budget and on schedule for that. Because of the material price escalations right now, we're starting to get a little concerned with potentially meeting that 3 mile per year goal. That's something our team is evaluating right now, and that's a few years out, but I would say we're gonna come back with a recommendation that we factor that into the next system plan update and methodologies for our rates in the future based on the economy at that time. But right now we're tracking well for that replacement program in the near term. The Fauner Street, 121st Avenue improvements, that is a project that's actually in with the 121st Avenue Street project. We coordinated with the county to include some water improvements. So in the CIP, it was a separate funded project, but the county is overseeing that closely with us, but they're taking the lead on the project. ASR wells number 2 and 3, rehab is complete at ASR 3 and construction contract for 2 has been awarded, and my understanding is they should be mobilizing very soon to start that work. Primarily it's maintenance focused work to clean our wells, some equipment upgrades, a new well house. And then reservoir 9-1 and 9-2 and pump station 11 abandonment. Those plans are being developed right now, and this is essentially a location that we identified as it was causing some water quality issues, so we're taking it offline. And it's going to help us with some operations and maintenance costs to not have to operate that facility anymore to keep the water quality in good standards. And then generator replacement at Canterbury Pump Station. This one is showing yellow as scheduled right now because of the lead time on procuring generators. It's significantly delayed from what we originally expected when the project was scoped. But this is to replace an existing generator at that pump station that is very difficult to get parts for now because of its age. Next slide. Mayor Lube, any questions on water?
Yeah, let's see if the council has any questions on the water projects. Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to sanitary sewer.
Thank you. The next systems are fairly short. So the sanitary sewer system projects, we have an annual maintenance program. We do a lot of sewer lining and manhole and inlet repairs through that program. We're on budget, on schedule. That's mostly projects fed to engineering from our operations team when they identify it's a larger project than they can take on themselves. And then the sanitary sewer system plan update, this is one of those plans that I mentioned earlier that guide our project selections in the future. This project is delayed on schedule right now, but we are intending to kick that off this spring. We were hoping to use our new Tyler software for asset management to guide that plan. But we see the need to update the plan right now and didn't want to delay it. So we're going to kick that off this spring and get that one back on schedule for delivery this year. And then the last updates that I have is stormwater. So stormwater major maintenance, same thing. It's pipe repair, culverts, stream restorations that is coordinated with our operations team. That's going well. And then our Kruger Creek stabilization project, That one is under construction right now, and it is currently on schedule and on budget with a expected completion date of October of this this year of 23. And then the Red Rock Creek stabilization project, we're at 30% design, starting easement conversations with property owners and starting to coordinate with our coordinator project with the public. That project is expected to start some vegetated corridor work in the stream this coming summer, with actual heavy construction of the restoration enhancement work in 2024. And then the last one on the list is the stormwater system plan update. That one is going to be starting later this year. In the budget, it's a 2-year project, so it will be completed in 2024. And then the next slide, it's always nice to throw a couple pictures in. This is 121st. A little bit nicer weather probably in the photo, so it's probably this fall. And then the second and last photo that I have is just some of the prep work, and the curb has been installed at this point for the new parking lot at Dirksen Nature Park. So with that, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I entertain any other questions that Mayor Lube or Council has tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the sanitary sewer projects or stormwater projects, or comments in general? Yes, Council President Hu.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 comments and 2 questions. 2 are kudos for scheduling the street improvements and water project at the same time, and that save us a lot of money. I believe that's 121st and even the Main Street, right?
Yeah.
So those 2, scheduling them at the same time, really appreciate that. Second one is that the CIP in brief, I just noticed that the printed version, the PDF version, you can click on several links
Yes.
that will lead people to web pages and even YouTube videos. So I really appreciate that. I especially appreciate watching the YouTube video about the family really appreciating the inclusive play set that we're building. So that's really touching. So that's very helpful. My 2 questions are, so regarding government contract bids, I'm newbie to this. So when we ask for bids, do we take into consideration past performance? For example, if they did a horrible job at street improvements in the future, if they place bid again, do we have to use them if they're the cheapest, or we can take past performance into consideration?
So the answer is yes, we can take past performance into consideration. We actually had a contractor this year that came in as low bidder, and we went through what is called a responsible bidder evaluation, and we were able to demonstrate that even though they were low bidder, we could not recommend to council or to the LCRB award of that contract. So we can use past experience and references for that. And we're also working on some contracting rules for the city of Tigard that on significant projects or based on the scale of the work, we may go through a pre-qualification process. So it's a little bit of a RFP process to get a short list of bidders and then go into the low bid process after that. So there's some things in the works, but short term, as we stand today, yes, we can use references because that's part of the responsible bidder criteria.
Wonderful. And my last question is, just to follow up on Councilor Wolf's question regarding the dashboard. She and you had an exchange of emails, and I really appreciate your willingness to consider even updating the dashboard for the future, so it's more useful, a little bit more useful to the council. So my question is, it seems like in terms of the risk, right now you put the risk of budget risk and timeline risk, but it seems like there might be another category of risk, maybe technical design risk. Maybe that might be helpful to have that third column, just to tell us maybe that's a separate risk. Yeah. So just something to consider. So that might be more helpful to us in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that input, and we're going to work on having a sheet or a explanation of the red, yellow, green, and kind of maybe quantify that of certain percentage or what that really means. So, because each project, red might mean something totally different. So,
thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the Community Development Quarterly Update. Thank you so much, City Engineer Wisniewski. And we will bring Community Development Director Asher up to give a report.
Well, thanks, Mayor Lube. Good evening, Councilors Hu and Wolf and Singh, wherever you may be. Keelan, maybe we'll hold off on the slides until I just make a couple of comments. I'll tell you then when to pull them up. Well, I'm Kenny Asher, Community Development Director, here on behalf of the 36 hardworking professionals in the Community Development Department, as well as Emily Tritch, our Assistant City Manager. And I'm really happy to be able to make this second ever quarterly report on community development activities to you. Of course, this is the first such report to you, our new council. So I've decided to go big. There are 22 projects and programs that I'm going to talk about tonight. Having just seen Joe's presentation, it's not so big after all. I don't know. He probably had 23. So I'll have to look at that next time. I'm including a couple of things that are new that we've jumped into since my last report in October. And I want to emphasize again, as I did last time, that though this report covers a lot of ground, a lot of the work in the department, it doesn't get into any of our permitting or inspections work, which is a critical and very busy part of our operations, nor our land use reviews and our planning commission related work. But I am encouraged that that kind of comprehensive overview will be part of the council goal setting discussion that we're all working on together. That's encouraging. Also, I want to mention this is a very fast-moving, high-level report. I'm assuming you have a basic understanding of all these projects. They were described to you in your packet materials. That allows me to skip the summarizing and just go right to the updates. Keep it moving along. I have 9 updates from our planning group tonight, 2 from our economic development program, 7 from our redevelopment team, and 3 from transportation planning. And I'm going to close with a quick update on our department's work on the Tyler transition, which we've started now. Several people in the department are working on that nearly full time now. And I'm also going to break some news tonight, just to make sure that you're all paying close attention. Okay, Keelan, thank you so much for advancing my slides tonight. I should also mention that if you have questions, I welcome them. I probably won't be able to answer them, but somebody in that team of 36 certainly can, if I can't. So away we go. We'll start with climate-friendly and equitable communities. The first slide, Keelan. About a month ago, our prior council adopted the first phase of required reforms, becoming, actually, it turns out, the second city to do that in the state, not the first. Corvallis was ahead of us. Not that it's ever a race, but some cities have to lead on these things, right? That action removed minimum parking requirements from our development code, but did not remove any parking rights for developers. Right now, we're scoping the second phase of work, which will make rules by June 30th. You'll be making those rules so that large parking lots will be more climate friendly. That's what's coming next. Next slide. River Terrace 2.0, the concept plan for that new neighborhood was completed in May 2021, 18 months ago, and we applied to Metro to bring the land into the urban growth boundary in October of 2021, quite a while ago. And today, happy to say, oh, this isn't even my big breaking news, but today Metro published a recommendation to do just that, bring this land in by swapping out an equivalent amount of land from the UGB in Clackamas County. The Metro Council's final decision is expected next week, and that should include funding for our next phase of work. And that phase of work we call community planning, and we've been writing a scope of work for that phase, and it's pretty massive. It includes land use and zoning and master plans for our utility systems, as well as a financial plan for getting all of that infrastructure paid for. We do still have a slight wrinkle to work out with Metro and Washington County regarding the county's continued interest in planning for Tile Flat Road. Next slide. Safe spaces. On this one, we're doing a little bit of continued outreach, having completed a survey and a report to council last year. And we continue to research best practices and to stay connected with partners like Washington County and supportive housing service agencies. Now, we're closely monitoring action at the state legislature that would extend shelter supersiting provisions, which currently exempt shelters from land use approval. And if those provisions are extended, then we can put this project on hold for the time being. So there's not too much happening on this right now, mostly monitoring what's happening at the state. Next slide. Tenant protections. Here, the outreach continues as well. We hosted a tenants' right event back on November 10th in collaboration with the Oregon Law Center. And again, we heard a lot of concern, as you would expect, about large rent increases and habitability concerns. And then on January 5th, right after the holiday, we gathered together with local developers and property managers and landlords, and also Councilor Shaw, to share ideas that we discussed with council in previous briefings, like eviction protections and habitability protections. Now we are preparing for a council briefing in February. We're hoping to continue this work with the stakeholders. That group is growing, and we'd like to be able to bring you a program proposal and possible code changes early this summer. Next one is the Home Project, Tigard Home, which was introduced to the Planning Commission and Council in May of last year, and then Council directed us to fast track one part of it, the urban agriculture component, which resulted in new regulations in October. And we're now finalizing an urban livestock resource page where livestock owners can access resources about running successful backyard livestock operations. Next month, we start outreach for the next phase of Home, which begins by asking residents very generally what they would like to produce or make or sell or be able to access from their home or in their neighborhood. And then we'll go to Tigard Made, which is the next one. Now, this is a project to update the city's commercial and industrial zones, which need to be modernized to reflect how the world works now. We are in conversations with property and business owners about possible code changes in those zones, and we'll continue that public outreach and council and commission briefings over the next 4 quarters. A lot of work to do in this one over this 2023. Washington Square Regional Center is in a pretty technical phase right now. The transportation analysis for the new zoning is underway. And the next step is to draft regulations based on adopted policy and then vet those recommendations with regulations, vet them with key stakeholders. And of course, in this area, in this neighborhood, we are eagerly awaiting the Washington County Board of Commissioners funding decisions on the next MISTIP round, which includes our application for a bike and pedestrian friendly Greenberg Road, which would be transformative for the Regional Center District. The next one is called the Tigard Energy Resiliency Initiative. This is a fairly new and fairly exploratory project that we built around a couple of grants. The idea here is to learn how microgrids might be put to work in Tigard for disaster preparedness or energy equity, or possibly both. The first grant was for a University of Oregon funded project that completed a business case analysis for building-based off-grid power, and the building we were studying was the Tigard Public Library. And the current grant through FEMA will continue the research at the library, but will also look at larger scales too, like possibly microgrids at Universal Plaza and Fano Creek Park together, and even in private development areas, large-scale private development areas. And a web presence for this project is in the works. Thank you, Councilor Wolf, for checking in on that one. Red Rock Creek Trail implementation. This is another new one that you're hearing about for the first time. This is the trail that will eventually connect downtown with the Tigard Triangle, so it's critically important, but it's incredibly difficult. We have obstacles between those two redevelopment areas like railroad tracks and Highway 217. We have a current Metro grant-funded study underway to help us figure out the best alignment, and a stakeholder work group is being formed right now. Okay, now I'm going to move on to some economic development programming. Business support. This is a catch-all. We do a lot of business support, and tonight I'm just going to update you on one program. This would be our Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, which was made possible by a $400,000 allocation of ARPA funding last year, and it's expected to leverage another $1.2 million for lending to Tigard businesses. Just to fill you in on where we are, an RFP was shared with local community development finance institutions in early December. And if you don't know, you'll maybe hear the acronym CDFI. A CDFI is a nonprofit commercial lender or a nonprofit branch of a for-profit commercial lender who make loans to underserved businesses. And a team of Tigard staff, along with other economic development professionals, are going to begin reviewing CDFI proposals later this month to run this fund. We're going to select a local lending partner and work out the details of the loan program and hopefully get money rolling later this spring. And the second economic development program here to talk about is the LaunchPod Business Accelerator, which is using 2 city-owned food carts to help entrepreneurs start restaurant businesses. And tonight, I am happy to break some news. We had 30 budding restaurateurs apply for this program. And with the help of local food business owners and business advisors and City of Tigard professionals, I'm thrilled to report that we've selected 2 businesses for the inaugural LaunchPod. And the selections, I'll say, were based on, they were pretty rigorous. They were based on marketing plans, financial forecasts, concept menus, completed consultations with our business partner, Livelihood Northwest, and very importantly, a tasting, a product sampling that we conducted in the office because we needed to be sure we knew what we were putting out there. And tonight I want to announce the selection of West Coast Torta and Harvest Moon Experience as our inaugural LaunchPodders. West Coast Torta will serve Mexican hot sandwiches and appetizers based on family recipes. This is a great story. This is owned by Tigard residents, Joshua and Alfredo Carrion. They live, I would say, less than a mile from Universal Plaza. The 2 brothers grew up in the restaurant industry, working in California and Oregon, and they are following in their father's footsteps, who was a chef himself. And Harvest Moon Experience is a woman-owned catering company specializing in seasonal comfort food with a charcuterie twist, as well as Oregon sangria. And Juliana Mosley, who's the proprietor, has more than 15 years experience in the food and beverage industry in Oregon and Hawaii, and is now turning her love of crafting snacks and drinks into her own food cart business, building on her success at farmers markets and her catering in Oregon wine country, which, by the way, we got this referral from Councillor Shaw, who knows a little bit about that industry, and thank you, Councillor Shaw, for connecting us. Juliana is ready to bring a unique product line to Tigard, like bacon-wrapped dates and deviled eggs, and family-style fondue boards, which I'm not entirely sure what that is, but there's going to be a nice variety of food at the plaza, and we hope to launch a couple of young businesses. Right now, we're getting leases signed with both of these businesses, getting final inspections from for the carts from Washington County Public Health, and we're training Joshua, Alfredo, and Juliana so they're ready to go with the opening of the plaza. Super cool program that's getting attention actually from places like Boston, Massachusetts have called us. Okay, I need to keep going. No time for bragging. Ava Roasteria, mixed use. I think by now everybody knows this story. What a great picture. The Town Center Development Agency purchased this property years ago and remediated the property with a U.S. EPA Brownfield grant, and Ava Tigard LLC, who are owners of a local coffee chain, signed a development agreement almost 5 years ago, acquired the property from us, and slowly and steadily worked through the development process to where we are right now, about to construct the first ever housing directly on Main Street, along with a coffee shop, a coffee bar, and a bakery. And I understand that today, fencing and erosion control was installed, and that on Friday, the site will be cleared and grubbed. And I would say next week, I'd be very surprised not to see construction activity out there. Speaking of housing, we're now into our redevelopment activities. The Alongside Senior Housing project, which you can see there from the drone shot, I guess it is. Short update on the 58 units being built alongside the Senior Center in Fano Creek. and a short walk to the Tigard Library and transit service and Universal Plaza in downtown. Construction is on schedule. The framing is all complete, as you can see, and work is starting on the interiors, and the project later on will be building a new connection to the Fano Creek Trail. So public improvements coming there as well. Next is downtown parking. And we continue to work on a parking management plan that's going to balance the needs of downtown employees and residents along with those of visitors and customers. This is not an easy thing to do in a constrained district like downtown Tigard, but everybody wants retail traffic. Everybody wants to go down there, wants it to be a destination, and people are going to continue to want to drive and park. We had an online survey live for 2 months, and that's closed now. We're reviewing the results, which includes getting rid of the bot responses, which apparently infiltrated this survey pretty heavily. That's a first for me. Phase 2 of the planning will begin soon with additional public engagement, and we hope to bring some proposed changes to council later this spring. Downtown Reimagined is the next project to talk about. It is going to result in recommendations for you on updates to our comprehensive plan, our transportation system plan, and our downtown development code, all to align our plans and rules with a fully up-to-date vision for downtown. Right now we're in outreach, like we are on so many of these projects, working with there are a lot of acronyms coming here, so just tell me to slow down if you want me to. The TDA, the TCAC, technical advisory and rail stakeholder committees, as well as to multicultural focus groups and developers. Draft land use and transportation recommendations will be reviewed by all those groups before you ever see them. And we're going to have a big public meeting this spring to gather feedback from the general public, because not everybody is represented in all of those groups and committees. Next is the Nick Wilson Memorial Plaza. This is exciting. We released an RFP for design and engineering in October and are now negotiating a design contract with the selected firm, which is called 2 Ink Studios. This was the firm, by the way, that came in second on Universal Plaza. Clearly have been trying to find work in downtown Tigard, and now we have a project for them. That contract should be ready for the local contract review board to approve next month. That's you all. And then design can begin. And the design process will take the better part of a year. Next is the Tigard Triangle. It's hard to talk about the whole triangle, so I'm just going to focus on this one project called Dartmouth Crossing North, which is REACH Community Development Corporation's 85-unit affordable housing project, and to which the Tigard Redevelopment Agency, Town Center Redevelopment Agency, has committed $1 million in development assistance. On this one, we have building permits in progress. We expect construction to begin in April. And also, this is kind of a bonus. We're working on an agreement with REACH to build off-site pedestrian improvements that would connect Triangle residents with the commercial area. That's not a requirement of the development. This is just makes good sense while they're out there mobilized and with contractors under contract. And this will not be the only Dartmouth Crossing. There's a phase 2. Which is in planning, and then REACH was recently awarded a federal earmark for that construction work, or for pre-construction work there, I should say. Last of the redevelopment projects, certainly not least, is this one, Universal Plaza. The lights and almost all the plantings are in. It's hard to get good photos of the site because it's pretty wide and big, and the weather has been pretty miserable, but the interior there of the splash pad, which you can see the shape of the splash pad. These are 2 large leaves that are sort of converging in the middle of the site and overlapping, and then you have smaller leaves in the interior. That interior space where the jets are and where the lights are is going to be built out over the next couple of weeks with granite, really beautiful stone, and also colored concrete, which took forever to finalize the colors and textures, but I think we're there. The benches, swings, and signs are all getting fabricated. They'll be in place late February, early March. We expect to know more about the transformer this week, which is our critical path item. and we are starting to plan for the grand opening, which will be in April. Clear your whole month. We'll give you a date here soon. And now the final sort of set of projects are the transportation planning projects, the electric mobility strategy. You know, this planning is key to reducing our transportation sector's carbon emissions, and we have 2 grants in hand, both from the state. One to prepare the city for more electric vehicle infrastructure, including a rethink of curbside management, and that's the electric mobility study. But sort of grouped together with this one, I want to mention the other one, which is to implement 2 e-bike share programs at 2 affordable housing communities. The strategy work is anticipated to start this spring, and that second one, the e-bike lending programs, whatever we're going to call it, are already happening with partners in these affordable housing areas. One is Greenberg Oaks, and the other is the Alongside project, although we'll probably be installing this at the senior center and not right at the apartments. And then I want to mention Safe Routes to School, of course. This is a big program. It's getting bigger every year. We are now in our 6th year of operation, and it's really exciting what's happening in this program. We are increasing family participation. We're winning capital dollars for desperately needed on-the-ground improvements, which I think you've heard about. We are in talks now with the school district about having TTSD become a co-sponsor of the program. And currently, among other things, we are focused on deepening engagement with the Tigard-Tualatin School District, including the student union, on climate issues and making those connections, and hoping to finalize an intergovernmental agreement with Tigard and TSD that would set us up in Safe Routes business together for the next 3 years. And there's been one meeting thus far with our folks and the administrators at the district, and it went incredibly well, very positive. So excited about all of that. And then another sort of catch-all, thanks, Keelan, another kind of catch-all is Complete Streets. We have a lot of projects and programs that are all intended to help us get to complete streets in Tigard. In June of 2019, we began a new era of transportation thinking with the adoption of our Complete Streets policy. And from that point forward, I would say that Tigard was no longer a cars first city. Now we're currently hard at work at the moment on several fronts. First, a cross-functional campaign to secure state and potentially federal investments to improve and eventually take jurisdiction of Hall Boulevard. And you know about that one, and we will want your help with that. That's a huge lift. Next is securing funding to improve Greenberg Road for bikes and pedestrians. I mentioned that one earlier. That's another huge street in Tigard that needs to be made complete. And by the way, when we say complete, you just think about vulnerable road users and our mission to be accessible and healthy and safe for everybody. Streets like Greenberg and Hall today are perhaps safe for motorists, if that, and certainly not for anybody else. Complete Streets policy says everybody should and deserves equal use of our rights of way. We're also applying to the Federal Highway Administration for a Vision Zero Safety Action Plan in partnership with Metro and Washington County. So we'll be doing more safety planning in our transportation system here soon. I suspect we will win that grant. And also applying for improvements to the Fano Creek Trail and 2 refinement studies. And for 2 refinement studies for critical active transportation connections across Highway 217 and the railroad tracks. And I should mention, too, that we continue to advocate for Tigard's interests and values in regional and statewide planning efforts, like the ODOT toll policy discussion and the regional transportation plan update. These are sort of big tables and big high-level policy decisions, but they impact cities like Tigard, and so we need to be paying attention and trying to make our voice heard, and we're doing that as well. And then last, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our Tyler project, which is referred to now as EPL. That stands for Enterprise Permitting and Licensing. We've now, and this will give you a little sense. I know you've heard from other departments about how much work this is, and ours is no different. We've now participated in 9 day-long work sessions to understand how EPL can be configured to address our needs and issues. And of course, that required that we document our needs and issues. We can't just talk about them. And not all of them are currently documented. So we have to do that work. We've created a team of key staff across 6 divisions that are involved in issuing permits and licenses to do this work. Not all of those divisions are in community development. The police department, public works, they issue licenses and some permits. So we're coordinating well. We continue to build process maps for things like land use cases, code compliance cases, permits, licenses. So far, we have about 70 of these business processes mapped and to be configured. But that's, just for now, we're still doing it. And last, we're identifying all the steps in all of those processes that can be automated so that we can get to the efficiencies that we're looking for out of this project. And of course, putting the customer experience in mind, at every point along the way. Whew. That's it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I see we forgot to update the date on our opening and closing slides. Sorry about that. And if you have questions, all kidding aside, I'd be happy to try to answer them or pass them along and get you answers in the next day or two.
Thank you so much, Community Development Director Asher. I think these briefings are incredibly important to keep us up to date and also to remind us everything that the city is doing, which is a lot. And now let's open it up for questions from the council. Does anybody have any specific questions regarding any of the programs? Yes, Councilor Wolf.
Yeah, I just felt remiss just not to comment. Thank you so much, Mender Asher. I mean, what amazing, exciting things. I know you and I are going to sit down. I feel like as the newbie, right, I'm not going to drill down tonight and extend Kenny's time another 30 minutes, but just appreciate all the city's doing. It's very exciting, so thank you.
Thank you.
Council President Hu?
Same here. With sentiment with Councilor Wolf. I really appreciate your effort. And just one quick feedback from my experience serving on the Planning Commission last year. I found that the joint meeting with the City Council on the Tiger May project, at least for me as a Planning Commissioner, that was very rewarding to hear that council members and the mayor at that time echoes my concern, community members' concern. And at the same time, I had the impression that council member at that time really appreciate community input from the Planning Commission. So, but for me, at least, I would appreciate maybe an opportunity, at least to meet with planning commissioners again for a project like Tiger May, just because it would be nice to have 11 additional committee members to provide their live feedbacks, especially at the early project of Tiger May. So, Councilor Shaw and Mayor Lube were on that meeting last year, so they can provide their feedback later if they want. But at least for me, I think the opportunity to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission for a certain project was a positive experience for me. So thank you.
Well, if it's okay with the mayor, we would be happy to set that up. I know that the Planning Commission always enjoys that connection, as you well know, Councilor Hu, and it's really about the council's time. And I think actually the MADE project and or the Home project, both of them are at a stage where broad-based high-level policy discussions with the two groups around one table would be helpful to us as well. So if we can find time to do it, we will absolutely do that. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yes, no, absolutely. I agree. I think that's a really great suggestion. And I'm excited for Tiger May to come back for an update and a robust discussion, because I do hear from a lot of our different businesses that have been in Tigard for a long time that there's a lot of curiosity and uncertainty and certainly some concern as far as, what the path we're going to go down and how that impacts them individually. And I think more communication, especially getting this council up to speed, is a really great idea.
Shall do.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much. We will move on to a briefing on the Climate and Community Resiliency Goal, which Assistant City Manager Tritch and Community Development Director Asher will give the staff report.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and community members. I am Emily Tritch, Assistant City Manager for Investment and Infrastructure, joined this evening by Community Development Director Kenny Asher. And we are here to provide you just a brief update on the climate and community resilience goal area. And we appreciate the opportunity to provide this briefing in advance of your upcoming discussion on your council goals. Thanks for driving the slides. Keelan, if you wouldn't mind going to the next one. So I just wanted to highlight for you what the existing climate resilience goal is from the previous council. And that is to develop and implement a bold community resiliency plan with the outcome of reducing a carbon footprint in the city. And the strategies include developing a community resiliency plan specific to our Tigard community and the organization, implementing resiliency practices to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035, communicating our resiliency efforts to the community to encourage individuals and businesses to adopt new practices supporting climate goals, and finally, to develop regional partnerships to help reduce carbon throughout the Portland metro area. So on the next slide, I wanted to talk you through some of the excellent work that we're already doing. And it's this meeting is especially well put together because you had the opportunity to listen to my colleagues Joe Wisniewski and Kenny Asher talk about some of the great work in engineering and in community development, and maybe give you a preview a little bit about how some of our capital investment projects, as well as our operational work in our community development investments, building growth, transportation planning, and so on, all contribute to what we've established as a city goal and what's valuable to us. These images highlight some of the activities that you might hear a lot about, including ivy pulling. We had great success with volunteers in the community over the MLK Day holiday, with members of the community engaged in cleaning up our parks areas. You've heard a lot about our Safe Routes to Schools programs, creating safe spaces and educating our young community members on how to get around safely using active transportation. We have a number of community gardens. We have a couple of electric vehicles in our city fleet now. We have 2 with plans to continue to grow our electric fleet. And then we've also done a tremendous amount of work in terms of caring for our natural areas in a way that reduces the risk of wildfire, encourages biodiversity, maintains the native vegetation, and creates safe and healthy spaces for our community members to be active within. So if you wouldn't mind going to our next slide, we wanted to take a moment to look ahead as well. So in this slide, today we have highlighted just this brief goal update for you leading into your continuation, your continuing goal discussion at the end of the month. And then we plan to continue work identifying some of the climate adaptation recommendations. In the fall, we had the opportunity to come before that council with several of our climate mitigation recommendations identified by our consultant team. And then next month, Mike Lewick, who is our emergency response coordinator and a leader across the region in disaster preparedness and response, will be presenting to you some of the recommendations surrounding adaptation and natural hazard mitigation planning and disaster response. And this comes on the heels of the regional natural hazard mitigation plan update, which is part of our FEMA compliance. So that'll be February 7th. We'll take the information that we've gained, that we've identified through our work with our consultant team, with our regional partners, with our community members, and with our agency colleagues through our various advisory committees to develop implementation planning. So look at the feasibility, the timing, and the prioritization of some of the recommendations that have come before us, and develop a strategy for how we might go about getting some early wins and making some transformative improvements, particularly among our historically underrepresented and underserved communities. Trying to figure out the best ways to focus our investments so that they can gain some benefit in terms of energy savings and mobility options and some of those sorts of opportunities. Those recommendations we plan to bring to you in the fall, and that'll be our opportunity to highlight some of the climate resilience solutions that we've worked together with our community to advance, and request your action to move forward. We do have some funds set aside for this effort in the form of ARPA dollars. I believe it's $850,000 to implement some of the climate resilience activities, and that includes both climate mitigation and adaptation work. And I believe as recently as last week, the federal government came down and said that ARPA funds can further be used as ARPA Flex funds so that we can have cities have the ability to deliver quickly programs that support disaster preparedness. So the investment work as with our library creating a warming, cooling, and clean air center might be an example of something like that, or other sorts of disaster response opportunities. So in addition to that work, in addition to the ARPA dollars, your city teammates continue to pursue additional funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, through existing grants and funding opportunities. You heard a moment ago about the FEMA BRIC grant to help us look at energy resiliency. And so we'll continue to identify those opportunities as well. And you may hear about a few more of those as Mr. Lewick joins us at the beginning of February. So I wanted to keep my remarks brief today to afford you a lot of time to ask any sort of questions you have around this particular goal area in leading up to your conversations and work here in about a week's time. So let me first invite Kenny, if there's anything that I missed or anything you want to chime in on. Otherwise, we can turn it to council.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciated the slides, and I think you did a great job capturing the work that's gone on to date. I'm also really interested to hear what this council has to say about this goal.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Thank you so much, Assistant City Manager Trish and Kenny and everyone who's been working on this. I'm really excited to be part of this council and this community because of this issue, and I really am hoping that we can continue to lead in this space and really collaborate with our regional jurisdictions, as well as learn from other cities on how we can, implement methods to mitigate as well as adapt to our current climate, what we're experiencing already. So just want to thank both of you for sharing this, and I'm looking forward to further discussions on this in the future. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Yes, Council President Hu?
I also want to follow up on Councillor Singh's comment. I really appreciate the city's effort towards carbon reduction, while at the same time you are also working on you are also focusing on natural hazard mitigation plan, because as we know, the impact of climate change does not fall on all of us equally. So I really appreciate your caring about vulnerable populations while we work towards this carbon neutrality goal. I have one question, is that your report briefly mentioned about community advisory group. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be detail coming? Like, does this council need to approve composition or anything? I understand that Councilor Singh was talking about his interest in this advisory group. So maybe anyway, what's the detail on the advisory group?
Thank you for the question, Council President. So in the fall, when we were doing a deep dive into our climate mitigation work, we had formed 2 advisory bodies, a community advisory committee and a technical advisory committee, and they were weighing in on the specific climate mitigation recommendations that were brought forward in October. We are planning to, after this meeting, to begin the work of identifying a broader group for a community advisory committee to help us do the work of implementation planning. So we have a number of recommendations and ideas and things that we could do in the city, but how we identify what to prioritize, what the biggest bang for our buck is, those sorts of things, is work that's going to take place here soon. So in addition to that new community advisory committee, we also will have a teammate committee made up of, we intend a cross-section of the organization, because we really want to lead by example and model the work of sustainability, in fact, and have that show up in all the things that we do, from reusable water cups to how we go about procurement and things like that, so that we see our values shown everywhere.
Thank you. Mr. Asher?
Thank you, Mayor Lube. I was just going to throw in on this one that, as you heard in my report, community involvement, public involvement, outreach, all of that, it's a part of everything we do, but always in different proportions. And some of our projects really need and get just enough. And others of our projects are really truly led by the community at the other end of the spectrum. And I see this initiative on that end of the spectrum. And we haven't designed this yet, as Assistant City Manager Trich just said. It's to be designed, but a lot of the work that has happened so far has really not been that kind of work. We acknowledge that, and we couldn't do everything last year. We were just starting. I think what's coming is a wave of interest and involvement and attention and an opportunity for this whole community to decide how it wants to become a more carbon responsible, carbon neutral, hopefully, place.
And I wonder if I can chime in once again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kenny. That makes me think of one of the asks that we might have of this council. We see this as an effort that's being led both from the bottom up and from the top down. We get a lot of feedback from members of the community, often in the form of, how can I help? Let's go. And this isn't happening fast enough. What can I do? And I think the number of volunteers you see at MLK Day events or helping out in our parks or these different sorts of venues, you see that a really activated and engaged and involved community is going to be a great driving force. And so one of our asks to you is to also to continue to apply pressure and lead with that intention as well. And the different things that you see come before you, I hope that will continue to apply that climate lens as well as along with our other values.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf? Oh, Councillor Wolf, can you unmute yourself? Thanks.
I try so hard to catch that every time. Thank you both so much for the presentation. And just a comment in the sense of, I'm excited for the city of Tigard to be seen as a leader, as pushing. And I think for me, I think I'm still trying to grasp those steps. What will that look like? How will those plans roll out to really effectively start to make a difference for those goals that we're setting for the city? So I just wanted to offer the encouragement, and just like my fellow councilmen and Mayor Lube, the support for the direction and the eagerness to understand it more deeply, if that makes sense, on how we get there. So as we talk to community members that are maybe a little concerned about how we do this well, anyway, so just wanted to offer my support and look forward to deeper dives as we continue to go forward.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Wolf. I will just add, I think this is, incredibly impactful and something that I said, I can't remember if it was the last council meeting, but I certainly hope all of our decisions are through kind of a climate lens and climate resiliency, and how are the decisions we're making, even with Tigard Made, how is that impacting the way we're impacting our climate down the future? And so I hope this is not just a project, but a different way of thinking and thinking of our projects and treating our city and treating our earth. But I'm excited to get more people involved and continue this process of what does it look like. Are there any additional questions or comments before we move on? All right. Well, thank you so much, Assistant City Manager Trich and Community Development Director Asher. We appreciate it. All right. We now have non-agenda items, and for that, we'll turn it over to City Attorney Rajala.
Good evening, Council. So last week we discussed the vacancy on the Charter Review Committee for the youth position. There were 2 people who identified as being interested in it. We were able to reach out, have a conversation with both of them. They both expressed interest, but we only received 1 application as of the deadline. That was from Zachary Claremont, and his application is attached in your supplemental packet. So the request of you tonight would be to appoint Mr. Claremont to the Charter Review Committee. The next meeting will be a week from Monday. So we want to, or next Monday, I guess, a week from yesterday. So we want to make sure that we have a seated youth member in time for that second meeting. And then if we do get a second application, the thought would be that we'll come back to you for appointment as an alternate. But right now we just have the 1. So happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, City Attorney Rajala. Did everybody have the opportunity to read the application today? Are there any questions, or I would entertain a motion? Yes, Councillor Wolf. Oh, I think you're on mute again.
There. My apologies, Mayor Loop. I thought I had disconnected or reset. I move to approve the appointment of Zachary Claremont to the Charter Review Committee.
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. Assistant City Recorder Raimundo, do you need to do a roll call vote because so many of us are remote today?
Yes, it'll just make it easier to do the vote.
Okay. Please conduct a roll call vote.
Councillor Singh,
I approve.
Councillor Wolf,
Approve.
Council President Hu,
Yes.
and Mayor Lube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, City Attorney Rajala. And we will now turn to an administrative report from City Manager Reimer.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good evening again, Mayor, councilors, members of the community, and my teammates. I want to start by just saying thanks to the team that's presented tonight. Just some really great work. Obviously, you get to have many conversations day in and day out, but it's always impressive when Joe and Kenny and Emily in their positions came forward, as well as many other things we do. And that's the other part. This is just part of the organization, and so it's just great to see the great work that those 3, as well as the other 350 teammates that we have do. So just kudos to everyone for that, and for your follow-up questions. It's always helpful for us to understand the things that are important to you, so we can make sure that our future reports reflect that as well. Just a few quick updates here. Our community, we were talking about community engagement a lot tonight, and input and involvement. Still has an opportunity to share their ideas and vision for Reimagine the Library's Technology Room. We have a survey that's out through tomorrow, January 18th. So we're just looking for additional input so we can take that as we look at reimagining and reinventing our library's technology room to better meet our community's needs and wants as we move forward in that area. We've talked about before the partnerships that we have. We have a partnership with Washington County Law Library to do the drop-in legal research for our community as well. The first session is on January 19th from 3 to 7 o'clock, and no appointment is necessary. So the first session is January 19th, which is this Thursday from 3 to 7 o'clock, and no appointment is necessary. A few updates from our recreation team. Thanks to Jessica. It's great having her joining us now, so we have some additional communications and engagement teammates on board. Our snowman, or I should say snow person, scavenger hunt was a success that we just had. We had 44 participants gathered, and we had some great feedback to enhance the hunt for next winter with our families. Our after-school activities begin next Tuesday at 12:00. We're partnering with the library, the parks and the library teams are partnering to assist in that process. And our next Kids Night Out is Friday, January 20th, so a lot happening this week, as you can tell, at the Fannel Creek House. We had some very positive feedback again on the December meeting. I want to conclude my remarks with reading not all of it, but the majority of a letter that we received from a couple of our residents after we had experienced the high winds and weathers in late December. And in this case, they had a blue fir tree blow over, called in, left a message, and within 30 minutes, Adam Jensen and our team responded, made the phone call back, and then responded and cut up the tree and hauled it away within an hour. Throughout the letter, they were very, very appreciative of the work that we do. They talked about, they used the word superb, all capitals and underline, superb job of the cleaning up of all the debris. They're also in capital again, the outstanding service that the city of Tigard provided, and then ended it with many thanks in capitals again, well done, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. So as we've mentioned, and as all you continue to bring up, our community promise and the 5 E's are truly who we are and how we're continuing to evolve as an organization. Just another great example of the things that happen day in and day out that we may not always know or hear about, but the work that in this case Adam and our maintenance team did, really appreciated by the community. So we appreciate your support in providing the resources for us to be able to respond like we do, and obviously the many teammates that do take those resources and provide excellent service to our community. And that concludes my remarks this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, City Manager Reimer. We don't have an executive session scheduled today, and so I would entertain a motion for adjournment. You can just shout it out. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion to adjourn has been moved and seconded. Deputy City Recorder Raymundo, will you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Councillor Singh,
I approve.
Councillor Wolf,
Yes.
Council President Hu,
Yes.
and Mayor Lube.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. I know we actually spanned the United States. For those of us who didn't know, we have somebody on the East Coast and somebody way off in the Pacific Ocean. And so even through COVID has been some really difficult times, but it also provides the opportunity for the councilors and the mayor to continue to serve even when we're far from home. So with that, thank you so much, Tigard. Have a wonderful night.